Episode 8 of Glass of Joe is a go. I'm PJ Glasser, joined by my man Joe Malfa. Joe, we've hit the midway point here in July. Sports slowly approaching, but while we don't have sports, we did get some major news last week. Pat Mahomes breaking the bank, $500 million.
That's incredible.
A 10-year deal. You knew it was big when Schefter tweeted out that it was a 10-year, $450 million deal with incentives to get up to $500 million. And then he was like, no correction on that. Like, that's truly what he's getting. I mean, for a football player to get a 10-year deal, we see those contracts in baseball with like some massive stars. But to see it in football, especially with the quarterback, I mean, that's pretty rare. I don't think anybody questions paying him that amount of money. It's just that, you know, in football, the next play could be your last play. We know the NFL stands for not for long. And you just wonder.
There's a lot of different acronym meanings for it. The no fun league, not for long.
No fun league, not for long. So my question for you is, we saw they were able to pay Chris Jones yesterday. I think because Mahomes is there, that guys will take pay cuts to play with him, especially on the offensive side of the ball, even on the defensive side of the ball, because they know they'll have a great chance to win. Do you think it was a good deal for the Chiefs, though, smart, locking him up for that long, or would you have gone maybe a 5, 6, 7-year deal?
So I think, and again, look, the nitty-gritty details on this deal and the Chris Jones deal are still very slowly trickling out. Like, you've seen some people question, you know, is there an out for Mahomes after a few years? Is there not? How much exactly is he guaranteed? How much is incentive? So there's still a lot of unknowns around the deal. I think that it was a very fair deal for both sides. If Mahomes went the full 10 years, he will ultimately end up underpaid. There's no question in my mind about that. You know, there's some people who are questioning if he should have held out for more guaranteed money, if he should have used his clout to basically be like, no, this is going to be the first fully guaranteed massive deal in NFL history. Like, he could have probably done something like that. But anytime a guy signs a contract that could be worth with incentives over $500 million, I'm not going to question his sanity. It's $500 million we're talking about. But I think as I've read up on it, more and more it seems that there is a legitimate out on his end after 5 years. This is 5 years into the extension. So he's still got 2 years left on his rookie deal. That, again, that was something that should not get lost in this. His rookie deal is still intact. They didn't rip it up and already start the new one.
Correct. He's got 2 more years on that.
So 7 years from now, because the 2 rookie deal years, and then after the 5th year of the extension, there's an out. At that point, he'll still be in his prime, right around that 30 number, and ready for another big bite of the apple. Even if he goes the full 10 years, he'll be 36. You look at the deals that Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady have gotten at their advanced ages, and Drew Brees, he still has another big bite of the apple. Obviously, he's got to stay healthy, but it's a great deal for him. If he goes the whole way, he's making almost $500 million. If he cuts it short after the 7-year mark, he gets another massive contract in his prime. So I don't think, while some people said he should have held out for something like more fully guaranteed money, I don't think there's really anything wrong with what he did. And it's a great deal for the Chiefs. The biggest thing for the Chiefs, and it's interesting that you bring up Chris Jones and his contract, the biggest thing for the Chiefs was getting him to agree to play out the last 2 years of his rookie deal, and then the extension kicks in. All the details on the Chris Jones deal have not come out either, but once they all come out, I guarantee it. I guarantee you there is an out of that contract after 2 years. They front-loaded it. It's $60 million guaranteed, $37 million due at signing. They didn't really release the cap structure beyond that yet. So I guarantee you it's going to be similar to the Le'Veon Bell deal with the Jets, where after 2 years they could cut him because that timing lines up. After 2 years, Mahomes' extension kicks in. They're going to have less money, and they're going to have to reshuffle the deck. But because Mahomes kept his rookie deal for 2 more years and then the extension kicks in, they have 2 years where they are the team to beat. And there's a decent gap between them and the next team because they were able to add Chris Jones. They still feasibly could trade for a Jamal Adams if they could make it work. They have still some maneuverability because the extension didn't kick in yet. So it was a home run for the Chiefs. They can go all out these next 2 years. It's a home run for Patrick Mahomes. If he stays the whole way, it's $500 million. If he cuts it after 7 years, he gets another big bite at the apple. Every party is happy in this, and they've always been a match made in heaven. Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid, and the Chiefs, and this just continues their great relationship.
I think the Chiefs are definitely the favorites. I think the Ravens are right there too. I'm not being biased. I mean, they're there. They're built for the next 2-3 years too. What do you think is going to? How many Super Bowls? How many MVPs is Pat going to need to solidify this contract? When people look back, they're like, you know what? He was worth every penny that they paid him.
I mean, you're asking the wrong person, because as a Jets fan who hasn't seen them make the Super Bowl in my 22 and a half years on this earth, and my dad hasn't seen them either, and he was born in 1970 because they won in 1969, we would take one Super Bowl every 10 years. So if you're asking me, honestly, he got his one already. As long as they're competitive and fun for the next few years, that would be all right. But because obviously the expectations for them are so high and the amount they're paying him, I would say he's got to probably give them two more Super Bowls to really – and this is over the 10 years, not two in the next 5 years before he gets out of the contract and gets a new one. Yeah. 2 in 10 years to go with the one that they already have. So you're talking 3 in 12 years, because the 10-year extension, again, is after these next 2 years. So if they're at 3 in 12 years, I mean, that's something that, you know, you can look at and ask for more, but at that point you're just being greedy, because then you've got people like me who, and my dad, who haven't even seen one. So if you can get 3 in 12 years, that's fair.
People look at Brady and it's unfair, and they're like, hey, the guy's won 6 Super Bowls. You know, why can't other people do that? And you look at some of the greatest quarterbacks of our time, Rodgers, Breeze, they only got one. Wilson's got one. Roethlisberger has 2, but one of those, he had, I think, the worst passer rating in the history of the Super Bowl.
Peyton had 2, and his second one was not him. That was all Von Miller.
So I agree with you. 2 to 3, I think, would solidify Mahomes. The comparisons to Brady, that he has to win 6 or 7.
That's a lot. That's excessive. Now, I'm not saying it's out of the question that happens.
Right.
I wouldn't at all be surprised if at the end of the extension, if he plays through the whole thing, or again, whether it's one contract or split up then into 2. So 12 years from now, I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at 2032 and seeing Mahomes with a full hand of rings. That would not surprise me in the slightest. I mean, for the next 2 years at least, while he's still on his rookie deal, they're the heavy favorites going into the season. He has played 2 years. His first year, they were overtime coin flip away from going to and probably winning the Super Bowl. His second year, they did win the Super Bowl. So logically, as long as health is there, they're going to be right in it this year, the following year, and every year after that. So I don't think he has to get 6 like Brady, that people are saying to make it worth their money. But I think he can, and I would not bet against it. If you were telling me today, over under 4.5 championships in the lifetime of this deal, what are you taking?
Under.
I would say right at 4, so I'd say under. That's why I said it at 4.5. But
I think he wins over the next 10. I'd go
that's
about
5 Super Bowls. If it's 4, if it's the 4 that I would pick over the next 12 years, that's 5 rings that he's got.
Right.
And then he would still only be 36. And you look at the couple that Brady won after that age. So he's going to be in that same conversation with the rings too.
The big thing to me will be during this deal is how good the AFC West will be. Because the reason Brady was able to win all those rings was he was able to get that bye to go to the divisional round. He never had to go on the road. If you don't win your division, you got to play wild card weekend. And it hurts now that only the number 1 seed gets that bye. The 2 seed will have to play in wild card weekend. So to me, if the Broncos get good, if the Chargers are good, if the Raiders turn it around in Vegas, and that's a competitive division, and Mahomes has to play some of these playoff games on the road during the wild card, that'll definitely take its toll on him. That'll be big. Let me ask you, who do you think is the next superstar to maybe not get that kind of money, but will get a new mega deal? You're probably looking at guys like Giannis. In baseball, maybe like a Juan Soto. I know Acuna just got paid, but just that kind of caliber player.
I don't know. I see. It's interesting because that question kind of got tossed out now. Like, all right, will quarterbacks all of a sudden be wanting that deal? Like, no, I think there's going to be an understanding among agents and GMs that a deal like that is reserved for one person and one person only until anybody else proves definitively otherwise. And nobody else has yet proved definitively otherwise. In baseball, same thing with Mike Trout. One Mike Trout and one Mike Trout only. People might want to get towards his numbers, but as we saw with Bryce Harper, I guess his deal came after Bryce Harper's, but nobody's even close to that deal. So I don't think anybody's going to come close to that deal in football or or MLB for quite some time. As good as Juan Soto is, he's not Mike Trout. He's not even close to Mike Trout, as good as he is. In basketball, it's tough because you've got the Supermax, so you can't have a 10-year deal like you can in those. But I think you can see Giannis get like the 5-year equivalent of that. And
Probably
he's
like
going to get the
million a year or whatever it is.
Yeah, he's going to get the absolute Supermax once it kicks in. It's tough. It's a really interesting question because
maybe Luka. I mean, if he kind of.
But again, NBA is tough because NBA is where that superstar power is in greater droves.
Right.
But they have more limitations on it. In the MLB, it's only Mike Trout. I mean, the closest thing we kind of saw recently was Garrett Cole, but even he didn't touch Mike Trout's deal. So there is only one Mike Trout. There is only one Pat Mahomes. I guess you're only looking at people to, shoot for the moon, land among the stars. You're only going to get players landing among the stars. I think Deshaun Watson could land among the stars. I think Juan Soto will end up there. Switching to the NHL, I mean, Connor McDavid, when he gets his new deal, he'll set the NHL equivalent of this. Now, granted, the money's a lot less in the NHL comparatively, but he'll set the NHL equivalent of this bar. But it's an interesting question because there are only deals like this only come around for a guy who has separated himself so much from the pack, and that's what Mahomes has done. Like I said, Deshaun Watson will get a big deal, not come close. Dak Prescott, I'm not too high on the guy. I put him behind a guy like Carson Wentz personally.
Same.
But he'll get a deal similar. Russell Wilson, at his age now, I don't know if he'll be able to get that kind of deal. Now getting towards the other side of 30 a little bit more. But yeah, it's Pat Mahomes, it's Mike Trout, and then it's kind of the rest. And that's what it's going to be for the foreseeable future, despite some star power. But let me ask you this, though. It's been a question going around this week, Twitter, talk radio. In the NFL specifically, is the gap between Mahomes and the second best quarterback bigger than the gap between the top player and second best player at any other position?
That is a good question. Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about the gap I would
one
say,
and two across
I would
the board.
say probably yes. I mean, the first that come to mind are Aaron Donald and the next defensive tackle.
That's a big gap. He just got his fourth consecutive Madden 99 overall rating, and nobody else is close to that, if that means anything.
Yeah, I mean, like who would even be the best second best?
Second?
Chris Jones, Calais Campbell, like.
I mean, there's guys in the conversation, but there's nobody who comes close.
That's what I'm saying.
Aaron
Now, if you start talking about are there guys at their position as good as Mahomes is at QB, I think that's a very good conversation.
So that in that conversation, I would say yes, because Aaron Donald is a yes.
Correct. I think Julio and Mike
Justin
Thomas.
Justin Tucker is a yes. I was going to say the only one where the gap between 1 and 2 is almost as big as Mahomes and the second best is actually Justin Tucker. There is nobody else in the NFL that I would trust nearly as much as Justin Tucker.
That's very true. Like, I mean, I've had this conversation with people. I personally think that Mike Thomas and Julio Jones at receiver are just as good as what Mahomes is at. I mean, Mike Thomas, the guy has 12, 13 catches a game, and you know where the ball's going.
In that conversation, I would agree with you. But again, as far as gap between 1 and 2,
yes,
no, because those guys are right there. You could throw DeAndre Hopkins right in there.
Right.
So if it's the gap question, no. But as far as good at their position as Mahomes is at his, those guys definitely fit the bill there as well. And, I mean, you kind of look around the league. At corner, not really a guy who stands out that far above the pack. It's kind of a cluster.
Gilmore's probably one. And then after that, I mean, it's Tre'Davious White. You can make, I mean, there's a lot of guys that are like
there'll be some people who argue, and I'm sure our guest for the day, Tim Murray, would argue the same thing, that Quentin Nelson, that guard, is in that category as far as a guard goes.
Yes.
I mean, you watch him, nobody wants to line up.
Dudes.
He's the only dude in the league, I think, who could actually go toe-to-toe with Aaron Donald and live to tell the tale without any help. So he's in the conversation there. But, yeah, I mean, it's running back. I wouldn't say there's really a guy who's head and shoulders. It's that cluster of McCaffrey, Saquon, and Zeke.
Right.
It's really
it's good. It's definitely Mahomes, and then the quarterbacks, and Donald, and the defensive tackles for sure.
And Justin Tucker.
And Tucker, no question. Because after those guys, you could make an argument for who 2 is right after that.
Yeah.
And the gap is wide. So I would agree with you. You just brought up Tim Murray. He's coming up next. Mahomes just got paid, Joe. Let's try and make some money ourselves with the great Tim Murray, co-host of The Daily Line. Joining us now, co-host of The Daily Line on NBC Sports Radio, our good friend Tim Murray. Tim, how's everything going?
Oh, we're all living the same day every day. And we've all heard the same jokes, Groundhog Day. But being serious, everyone's healthy. So I think in these crazy times, it's all we can hope for. So yeah, all things considered, we're doing all right.
Amen to that. Well, Joe and I are happy to have you here. We're big sports betting guys, so we can't wait to see what you have to say. We're going to touch on a bunch of different topics with you, a bunch of questions on each sport to get your thoughts. But first, before we get into a betting question, we have to start with college football, and just with the news going on right now. I mean, how you feeling about the season?
Not great. It's about a month ago, I was feeling okay. I felt like a lot of us were seeing the trends going in the right direction. We saw some schools, returning to campus, and even if the numbers were, they had a couple positive tests, they were doing the right things and quarantining, et cetera. But certainly this past week, Ivy League, Big Ten, Pac-12, there's been a handful of other smaller conferences. You just kind of sit and hold your breath. Ultimately, guys, I think it comes down to football really has to happen for these schools. It is such a money-making operation. And in order for these non-revenue sports to survive, they need football. But that all being said, fans are vital to these schools too. You talk about 90,000 people entering a stadium on a Saturday 7 times a year. The TV revenue for college sports, especially college football, is large, but the gates are vital too. So, I don't know if there's a perfect answer. I think it's a wait and see approach. I know that's kind of what the ACC is doing. They might wait till the end of July. The SEC, Big 12 are kind of holding back, but yeah, it's really interesting. And just these past day or two, guys, it feels like spring football has gained some momentum, which I know will, you think about some of the big names, none bigger than Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence, Clemson and Ohio State respectively. If you're those 2 guys, are you even thinking about playing spring football? I find it hard to believe, knowing that the payday's right around the corner with the NFL. So it's going to be, there's no easy answer. I think football will happen during the school year of 2021 or 2020 and 2021. But your guess is as good as mine, how it's going to all look.
Yeah. And I guess, back when college basketball was still around, everybody kind of looked at the Ivy League and was like, oh, what are they doing? Why are they canceling the tournament already? And then everybody else fell in line. So that's kind of something to look at now. They already moved to the spring. Will everybody else fall in line? The Patriot League already did at the time that we're recording this, still the only other conference that has. But what we've been trying to do the last couple of weeks, maybe have a question or 2 at the top related to our circumstances, but then move past it, try to look on the more positive side. So if there is a season, as far as betting goes, do you think people should still go grab that line on Sunday morning when it comes out that they like, or would you be more tempted to wait until the end, even if there is a really good early line? Would you be more tempted to wait till later in the week just to see if anybody, God forbid, contracts it during the week? How would you approach that?
Yeah, that's a great point. I would say don't even think about betting a future right now because, we have no idea. And I wrote a column recently when the Big Ten made their announcement that there will be no non-conference schedule. Well, there's no race to play a future on Ohio State. I mean, they are an incredibly talented team, went undefeated in the regular season last year. They bring back Justin Fields. He's the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy. But, we don't know how things are going to be looked at. Now, ultimately, I think there's going to be some uniformity. If we do play conference only, I think majority of these conferences will fall in line and do that. But right now, I mean, there's no race to play any future. To your point about if we get a season and there's still some COVID out there, which is probably very likely, even if we play it, I think, Joe, that's a great point that you made because, I mean, I've heard other coaches talk about it. I think Brian Kelly was on Scott Van Pelt's show saying, hey, we're going to have to really roll with the punches, next man up. You've heard all those cliches, but if someone contracts coronavirus during the week, you would hope that those schools are going to follow the proper protocol and pull that player out and put them aside for 2 weeks and make sure they're, coronavirus free. So yeah, I would not race to lay a line, and it's very rare that you can ever beat Vegas to the punch, but sometimes you can get lucky and you could see if someone contracts COVID that maybe you get a better line. But I mean, it almost feels morbid to even talk about this.
I know.
Like, hey, all right, so-and-so got COVID, now I could get a better line. So it's just crazy times we're even thinking about with all of this.
As you were saying that, what was going through my mind was, will people try to grab underdogs on Sunday and hope that the star player for the other team goes down? If you've got I don't even know if it's on the schedule, but if you've got a Citadel Clemson game and Clemson's roster were to get wiped out, does somebody grab the Citadel on Sunday and hope for that? That's morbid to even think about, but it's possibilities this year.
Well, and think about in all likelihood, the NBA, I know there's a couple COVID positives, happening, but the theory of the bubble is once you're in the bubble, and we've seen it with the TBT, no positive tests. Once you're in there, the thought process is everyone stays in, but I mean, you never know. I mean, they're down there for a long time. So, I mean, the NBA, who knows? I mean, once again, I hate even using an example, but, Giannis gets COVID. I mean, the Bucks are a completely different team. LeBron gets it. They go down the list. I mean, I know Russell Westbrook currently has it. In all likelihood, he'll be back in time for the start of the regular season down there. But yeah, I mean, it's an immediate 2 weeks out, right? I mean, so unless there's a false positive or whatever it may be. So yeah, when it comes to the betting world, and once we get into big time sports, the NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, the NFL, I mean, it's going to be fascinating on so many fronts when it comes to what we're dealing with right now.
And before we pivot to the NFL, a bit of a personal question for you. We've already seen the Big Ten, Pac-12 already go to conference-only schedules. You're a big Notre Dame guy. So do you see if this goes on this way, will they play an all-ACC schedule? And could this be the end of the malarkey of being just an independent?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think to your initial question, I think the ACC has extended that olive branch. And I know David Cutcliffe came out and was not really in favor of it. And, my defense to that, and once again, I am a homer here, but I also think about economics. I went to the Duke Notre Dame game in Durham this year. It was a sellout. In November, it was a primetime game. The following week, Duke hosted Syracuse, and 16,000 people were announced for that game. So, David Cutcliffe can say, I don't understand why they do this. It doesn't make sense for the conference. But, think about this. Since Notre Dame has had that agreement with the ACC, Notre Dame, Florida State in 2014, College Game Day, incredible finish, controversial with an offensive pass interference, but still, College Game Day primetime. Notre Dame, Clemson in 2015, when Clemson went on to win the national championship. Incredible game in the rain, 2-point conversion stopped. College Game Day again. I mean, there have just been multiple examples of both sides benefiting from it. Look, ACC, Notre Dame very much so benefited from this agreement, and they've joined ACC and all the other sports. But the ACC network, the ACC network is pretty darn happy that Notre Dame is a part of the ACC for all the other sports, and they're going to play a game or two on that network. So, ultimately, I think what happens is if this crazy season happens, Notre Dame will do an all ACC schedule. Maybe they get to play Navy, and then they'll fall back to what they've agreed to. And that agreement right now for football, I believe, is through 2037. So I don't think that's going anywhere. And for the people out there, saying that we'll just join a conference. Well, Notre Dame has no reason to join a conference.
I know.
Because they made the college football playoff. Once Notre Dame made the college football playoff, then they basically said, we're good. We made it. We know what we have to do. There's a small margin of error for Notre Dame because they had to go undefeated in order to make the college football playoff 2 years ago. But yeah, this year is going to be unprecedented. The ACC, I guess, in reality could have said, you're not going to be a part of this, but I think for business, it makes a lot of sense to extend that olive branch, allow Notre Dame to be part of a unique circumstance, and then go back to, what ultimately will be a 5 or 6 game schedule every year.
Tim, going now from college to the pros, who are 1 or 2 teams in the NFL that you like to go over their win total, and a team that you maybe think will go under their win total?
Just trying to think of some win totals off the top of my head right now. We did a thing for NBC Sports Washington, right after the draft, and schedule-wise, the Ravens are in a pretty good spot. Initially, I thought, okay, this is a fadeable spot. Teams are going to get better. The Bengals are going to be down, I still think, even though, you draft Joe Burrow. So I think there's the possibility of 2 wins there. The crossover, if my memory serves me correct, for the Ravens is the AFC East. The end of their schedule includes Miami on there. There are some very winnable games. So if you just look at the way Baltimore's schedule sets up, it sets up pretty nice. You guys know
me. I think they're the West this year, but still.
The farthest west they go is Houston. So
so they're the South.
They play the AFC South. So there's just some winnable games there. So I like the over there if it stays at 11. A team. I like Arizona. I think that's kind of going to be a chic pick. I saw Cliff Kingsbury at like 40-1 to win Coach of the Year.
Really?
If it was a looks competition, it'd be a runaway. My man is suave there, sitting at his place with his feet up there on the NFL draft. They got some talent, man. And you think about the trade that they made with Houston to get Kyler Murray more weapons. They were able to get that offensive tackle from Houston University in the 3rd round, I want to say. They have been able to acquire a lot of talented pieces down there in Arizona. So I forget what their win total is off the top of my head, but
7.5.
Yeah, the tricky part for them is, the NFC West is so stacked.
Right.
The Niners have just gotten better. You look at Seattle. They've been able to add some weapons for Russell Wilson to work with. So they are a loaded division there. So that's the tricky part for Arizona. But yeah, I do lean. I think a lot of people are going to be on them this year, but I like the over there when it comes to Arizona. And I don't know, man. You look at the Redskins, I think the win total's at 5. If you get up to 5.5, I like the under there. I've actually changed my mind on this. I know they've got a lot of young defensive talent. You got Ron Rivera coming in. Obviously I said Redskins, they're no longer that, so they got to deal with everything that's involved there. I'm not anti-Dwayne Haskins. I think he showed some promise, but, you hear the news of Kelvin Harmon going out. Terry McLaurin was very impressive as a rookie, but feels like they're going to be relying on him even more. What are they doing at the tight end position? So I just worry about what weapons they have offensively, for Dwayne Haskins to use. Darius Geis is always hurt. Adrian Peterson's, a million years old.
Still trucking though.
I mean, I like the pick of Antonio Gibson in the third round, and that could be a guy that they could utilize in some really unique spots. Put him out, as a flanker or whatever it may be. So that the Redskins are a team that I would, if there is a 5.5 out there, I would look pretty hard to look at the under. I know a lot of shops have it at 5, so they're a team that I would be looking into potentially fading this year.
What are your thoughts on Tampa? Because for me personally, I think they resemble a lot of what Cleveland was coming into the season last year. You make the big free agent acquisitions with Brady and Gronk. You get everybody talking about you. And then we know the Browns missed the playoffs and we're an under 500 team. Do you see Tampa kind of going down that same road, or you think with Brady at the helm that they live up to expectations?
Yeah, they're a team, guys, that I certainly I hear that similarity, and I immediately thought of it too. I mean, the difference obviously is you've got Tom Brady and not Baker Mayfield. You've got Bruce Arians and not Freddie Kitchens, who looks like he just woke up. That all being said, I mean, I think, to me, guys, I see value in the New Orleans Saints in this regard, because everybody's falling in love with the Bucs. I understand they've got tons of offensive weapons down there. I mean, Tom Brady's numbers, like it's hard to fade Brady, but he's 43. You look at his numbers from last year; they were significantly down. Gronk didn't even play football last year. So I like the Saints. I think you can get them at even money to win the NFC South. And I just, I think, they signed Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, Drew Brees also a bit long in the tooth, and, he dealt with an injury last year. I'm not buying in on the Taysom Hill train, but look, their backup quarterback is Jameis Winston, who, all jokes aside, you could do a lot worse than Jameis Winston as your backup quarterback. Mm-hmm. And Sean Payton has certainly proven to be a bit of a QB whisperer with his backup. Teddy Bridgewater walks in and wins 5 games last year, and then gets a pretty large deal from the Carolina Panthers. So, I think about, adding in a weapon like Emmanuel Sanders, to pair him up with everything that they've got already down there in New Orleans. To me, it's not more of a fade Tampa. I just think you can get New Orleans on a bit of sale to win that division because of the overwhelming love of Tampa Bay. So, I'm not ready to say that Tampa Bay is going to miss the playoffs or, be under 500, but I do think they will not win the division. And I think you can get a superior football team at a cheaper price than usually in the New Orleans Saints.
Now, something that starts more immediately, a week from when this releases on Thursday, on July 23rd, baseball's supposed to be back. And again, under the assumption that we're back, in a shortened season, do you, almost kind of how we talked about with college football earlier, do you look at some teams like the Padres or the Mets or some of these teams that might have good World Series value or good playoff value and take a chance on them because it's a 60-game sprint? Or do you stay away from futures entirely for baseball?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I played one future, bit of a homer future on the Nats. I saw them at 30-1, and I just played it because I said, with that starting pitching, I felt like, why not? But yeah, the fascinating thing about this year is going to be that start. I think the team, and I believe it was the Mariners last year who got off to a ridiculous start.
Yep.
And they would have made the playoffs, I believe, through 60 games.
They would have. And they ended up historically bad after that.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously the comparison is, the Nats wouldn't have made the playoffs last year. So yeah, who's going to get hot early on? Are young teams going to play well? You mentioned the Padres, Joe. Toronto's a team too.
Oh yeah.
Toronto's going to be interesting because I wrote something this week, from a report that was from Buffalo. They don't know where they're going to be playing their home games right now. Travis Shaw was kind of bent out of shape up there, talking about the fact that they might not be able to leave the hotel at Rogers Center. If they do, they could be fined like $750,000 and put in jail. It's incredible. I understand what they're doing, man. Canada's kind of controlled this coronavirus, and they don't want it, messing things up. So, where is Toronto going to be playing? But that all being said, they got a ton of young talent. But that division is insane. You look at the Nats too. And, I think their win total is around 33. That jumped. I think they opened up around 31 in a lot of spots. The reason it jumped is because the Nats have a favorable schedule. I mean, they get the Orioles 6 times, and everyone else gets the Mets get the Yankees 6 times. It's just 2 games, but still 2 games out of 60 could be very, very important. So you look at that there, you still get the Marlins. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be really, really tricky. I did play the under on the Orioles for all you Oriole fans. I mean, look, man.
It's not a bad play, Tim, honestly.
I mean, look, they were 19-41 last year through 60 games. I'm wishing, obviously, every positive vibe in my body for Trey Mancini to get better. Yes. And sounds like things are going well, which is, we should all be thankful for. But he's not playing this year, and he's their best player offensively. They didn't really do anything to help that rotation. And then, the way I think about it this way, guys, with the Orioles is every team knows they have to beat the Orioles. I mean, think about the AL East. You've got the Rays. They're a team that made the playoffs last year. The Yankees are expecting to win the World Series. The Red Sox are hoping to bounce back. The Blue Jays are a team that has high hopes with all this young talent. So that's their that's 40 games right there against those 4 teams. And then the NL East, you're looking at the Mets, the Phillies, the Nats, and the Braves. I mean, the NL East is completely up in the air. The only team that may be even on the same level as them is the Marlins. I've even heard some analytical people say that the Marlins could be a good value play, which I'm not buying.
I'm not buying that one.
I played, I think, under 21 or 21 and a half games, which seems crazy. But, if they surpass that, I mean, good on you. I just think about there's just no gimmies. They don't get to play the Detroit Tigers this year. I mean, they have to play pretty much 56 out of their 60 games are going to be against superior teams.
Yeah. And now, as far as the individual games go, and this is going to be a lot tougher of a question. You could punt on it if you want. As far as the individual games go, do you think that we're going to see run totals kind of come down as managers maybe micromanage because every game is so important?
It's a great question. I don't know. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of wait and see. My early inclination is the reverse, right? Because there's a designated hitter now in the National League.
True.
And also starting pitchers are not going to go deep into games. I mean, these first couple of weeks are really going to be like spring training games. Now you could play the other side of the coin, right? And say, well, bullpens can dominate games. That's true, but not on a everyday basis. So my early thought was, I think the run totals might be up this year and the pitching might be down. Because you're not, coming out of spring training, normally you're going into cold environments, right? So the pitchers usually have the leg up. You see low scoring games. Now we're starting at the end of July. The ball is flying out of these ballparks, the majority of them. So my early thought was you're going to see higher run totals, but I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't know if you guys have been watching much of the MLS. I think, early on, I was listening to Taylor Twellman, and he said he expects really high-scoring games, and it was the reverse. It was really low-scoring games. So, I mean, who knows? But my early inclination, I think the over-under in that Nats-Yankees game is 7. My early feel is I would take the over. It's a high-powered lineup with the Yankees. Garrett Cole is, I think looked really good in his first couple scrimmage exhibitions, whatever the inter-squad games. I mean, certainly he'll be motivated, facing the team that eliminated them last year in the World Series. But, my my gut tells me some higher scoring games, judging, warm weather, pitchers not fully amped up, designated hitter in both leagues. So that would be my gut right now.
Tim, over to the NBA now. How long are you going to wait to bet NBA games? I mean, how many games realistically do you think it'll take for people to really start seeing what these teams are looking like, especially just how much these lineups could interchange every game?
Yeah, I mean, I will say this before I get into games. I feel like the cream's going to rise. I still will stand by what I said all during the regular season. If anybody outside of Milwaukee or the two Los Angeleses win this thing, I would be stunned. I know LA is dealing with Rajon Rondo being out, but he's in all likelihood going to be back by the second round of the playoffs. And if the Lakers without, their fifth or sixth best player can't get to the second round, well, they had bigger issues that we didn't know about. I mean, they'll obviously be without Avery Bradley, who hurts. He's a good defensive players, but their backcourt depth is not really an issue. But yeah, betting individual games is going to be really interesting. I mean, looking at the Western Conference, right, you have 13 teams, and you've got, if hypothetically, the Blazers lose 3-4 games out of the gates, guys, doesn't it feel like it's an immediate fade them because they're just going to be checked out? I mean, do you really anticipate, Damian Lillard after, as being mathematically eliminated is still going to be motivated to play?
He might not even play, period.
Yeah, I mean, so it's going to be really interesting to see those, I feel like New Orleans is going to be hyper motivated. They might be a team that you might want to, follow a little bit. I think Orlando could be a team too that you're going to want to follow because they're going to want to do everything in their power to get out of that 8 seed. Now they're only a half game back of the Nets, who are obviously just a complete disarray with everything they've had to deal with. I mean, I saw Michael Beasley just tested positive for
their
COVID.
Band-Aids are falling off now.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I did make a bet, before Bradley Beal made his decision, which I totally commend, and I don't have any issue with him saying no thanks. Mm-hmm. I made a bet at 11-1 that they would, make it to the playoffs just because I felt like the Nets were falling apart, and if Bradley Beal got red hot for 2 games against the Nets in a play-in situation, that why not? But now it seems a little bit trickier. But still, I mean, I'll be honest, man. I still think, even though, without really anyone of note, the Wizards are an interesting team because if they just win, honestly, if they win 3 games, the Nets win 1, you've got a play-in situation. Now, it still seems a bit unlikely. I mean, that's why it's a long shot. But, yeah, these individual games are going to be fascinating to see. And, does a team like Philadelphia, who was historically bad on the road, does that trend follow them to technically road games because they're not in Philadelphia? I don't know. So I'll be honest, I'll probably wait back and watch these first couple games and see what's happening. And I kind of tend to feel that once we get to the playoffs, it's going to be pretty normal. Right. These guys will get used to it. They'll be back in shape. I mean, these first 8 games are going to be sloppy. They're going to be really, really sloppy for everybody. So it's going to be really interesting. And I'll say this too. I think teams like the Lakers and the Bucks, they might be teams to fade because honestly, what are they playing for? True. The Bucks and the Lakers, I think off the top of my head, the Lakers are 5.5 up on the Clippers. And the Bucks are 6 up on the Raptors.
I think that's right, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Their magic numbers are 2 and 3 respectively to lock in the 1 seed. And then you're not trying to play for the number 1 overall seed. It doesn't mean anything. So, do they look at those games as preseason games? Do they rest LeBron? Do they rest AD? Do they rest Giannis? I think once the Bucks and Lakers lock things up, and it might be early, I feel like that might be opportunities to look to fade those teams because who knows who they're playing. They might be playing a desperate team trying to eke their way in or jockey for position. So, yeah, those are a couple teams that I would be curious about towards the end of that regular season.
I know one thing that I'm looking to bet is whatever Jamal Crawford's point total is in every game, take the over. That guy hasn't played in how many? Over a year and a half, I think it was.
He's going to be chucking.
Dropped over 50 in his last game. There's nobody else on the Nets. He is going to shoot 40.
Well, what about Karis LeVert? I mean, Karis LeVert had like 51 a couple games before the shutdown happened. And now, I mean, obviously no Kyrie, no Spencer Dinwiddie, no DeAndre Jordan. The list goes on. So, yeah, it might be a Karis LeVert. He takes the first 4 shots and then Jamal Crawford chucks couple. But yeah, that'll be really interesting. Karis LeVert's totals. I don't usually do a ton of player props, but I would look long and hard at Karis LeVert because who else is scoring for the Brooklyn Nets?
True.
It's true.
Other than your guy,
Yeah.
Jamal Crawford.
Yeah, and now lastly, I mean, you kind of touched on it already, that it's Bucks, Clippers, Lakers for you. Do you see any value bet that you're looking at all, or is it just those?
I really don't. I don't believe in the Rockets whatsoever. I will say this: the Raptors are a team that, Nick Nurse has proven. Look at what they've done so far. Nobody thought they would be this good, with Kawhi Leonard leaving. So maybe the Raptors to win the Eastern Conference. I don't think they have enough firepower to pull off a stunner in 2 series over the Bucks and then over Clippers or Lakers. I really do find it. I don't know. The Celtics. When you have a smaller guard like Kemba as your main guy, in the postseason, that's pretty much been a historic no-no.
Yeah.
So I would say the value play, if I had to pick one, I would trust in Nick Nurse in that defense. Some of the preparation that they put in, the game plans that they have. Look, once again, a curveball could be thrown at us like someone of importance, a Giannis, a LeBron, Kawhi, someone like that, contracting coronavirus. That certainly could happen. That's the world we're living in right now. But if I also have to feel, guys, that these teams, we haven't heard a word from the Bucks. Who've been complaining down there. The Bucks they're just zippered up.
Yep.
And they're not.
Way to go.
They know their eyes are on the prize. I think they have really good leadership in that team. From my understanding, very close-knit group. So I don't think they're messing around. I think these better teams are not going to really fool around. They know they're there for business. They're trying to take care of things. So, yeah, I would be stunned if one of those 3 didn't win it. But if the Raptors made it back to the finals, I think that, to me, would be the long shot I could see happening. And then it's not even that long. What is it?
It's not that. It's not
one.
that bad.
It's not even that long of a shot.
Yeah. Now, just one quick golf one before we get to the 2 segments we like to wrap up with every week. Tiger's back this week, back on the prowl, and are you looking at him to get started hot, or who's your pick this week at the Memorial?
I'll just say I hope that Tiger plays well. He plays historically very well at the Memorial. It's a Jack course. He's dominated there over his career. The dude hasn't played golf since that Peyton Manning, Tom Brady thing. So I think I saw 25-1 for him. I haven't bet any golf yet, guys. I don't know if you guys.
Maybe that's smart.
Tim, I love betting the golf. I'm like Doug. I fill my DraftKings lineup out every week, man. Schauffele's my pick this week. I love Schauffele's my guy.
Yeah.
Peter, you're spoiling the later part of our show.
I know, but Schauffele, the Memorial, it's like a DeChambeau, Cantlay, like that kind of golfer. Schauffele fits the mold, and I like him a lot.
Yeah, DeChambeau, won last week. I'd seen so many people backing him these first couple of weeks, so he finally got it done. I hope, man, it would be great thinking about, his first tournament back if he's in one of those final groups. You know what I did bet real quickly, because I know I could see the clock there. We're running out of time. Application. I did bet the Celebrity Golf Tournament a little bit. Because I was out there last year, and I didn't bet Marty Fish to win it. I wrote an article saying he's a good value, but I faded Steph Curry a bit because even though he played great, he's just people beef him up so much. So
right.
I put a little dabble on the American Century Championship, which is fun to watch.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wanted to get out there for sure.
Oh my God, it is unbelievable. It is spectacular.
It looks amazing. As Joe was saying, we end all our podcasts with our guests. 2 final segments: the Swift 7 rapid fire questions for you. Anything goes, and then we got a trivia question for you at the end that we think you'll enjoy. Question number 1 for you. What do you enjoy betting more, March Madness or bowl season?
Bowl season.
Favorite Notre Dame football player ever?
Rocket Ismail.
Sports venue you want to get to the most that you haven't been to?
It would have happened this year, Lambeau Field. I was all set to go. Notre Dame, Wisconsin. October 3rd. And hopefully it'll happen at some point. By the way, I did name my dog Manti after Manti Te'o.
Okay.
So all-timer, it would be Rocket Ishmael.
Favorite sport to watch?
College football.
All right. Best tailgating snack?
Ooh. I'm a big dips guy. Not packing a lip. Dip. Any dip you throw out there, you give me. So I'm a big chips and dip guy. So you put that out there with a nice cold beverage. You said snack now.
Yeah, snack.
We get something on the grill. It's a little
bit
different.
That's a meal.
Snack.
That's a meal.
Salsas, a nice dill dip. Yeah, give me any of those. Nice queso dip, guacamole, anything. Just give me a plate of dips.
All right. Pat Mahomes could buy a lot of dip with his new deal.
Yes,
underpaid, overpaid, or justly paid?
I think ultimately underpaid. It's crazy to say that $500 million is underpaid, but the trajectory right now. They were able to still pay Chris Jones. They have figured it out. So, I'm never going to knock a guy for signing a $500 million contract.
Yeah.
But if you really wanted to get more guys, who the hell knows where the cap's going to be at in 10 years. So ultimately, long term, at the end of that contract, if this trajectory continues, we're going to be looking at his contract compared to everyone else in the league and say, wow, Patrick Mahomes is only making $40 million a year compared to this quarterback who's making $50. So as crazy as it sounds, I think a bit underpaid when you look at it in its entirety.
All right, last one before the trivia question. We got the clock ticking down. Question 7 of the Swift 7, you made it through. Are parlays for suckers?
Yes. Yes.
Easy. I like it.
All right, Tim. The trivia question. We'll go in your wheelhouse here. It's 90 seconds on the clock or 3 strikes.
Okay.
Can you name the 5 most recent Notre Dame football players taken in the first round? And we'll give it to you if you could give us 4 of the 5, because I know when me and PJ were going through this, we both got stuck on one. So if you could give us 4 of the 5 most recent Notre Dame players taken in the first round, and your time starts now.
Okay, so it was in 2018. Oh, man, I'm going to forget his name. So you got Quentin Nelson, you got Mike McGlinchey to the 49ers, Nelson to the Colts.
Correct.
Jerry Tillery went to the Chargers.
Correct.
And then I'm trying to think prior to that. All right, I got 3 of them. Think offensive linemen.
30 seconds. So you got 60 left. Plenty of time.
Oh man. This is great podcast.
You only got to get one more.
I know. 2017. Ronnie Stanley, was he one of the last ones?
Correct. Ronnie Stanley to the Ravens 2016. Yep. The last one was Will Fuller. I didn't realize he was that. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. I thought he was 2014 or 2015, but he was 2016 in Houston. So well done, Tim. Well done.
There you go. Now, the media people haven't been doing so well. I know Tim Kirchin didn't get his right. Joe Beninati didn't get his right. Chris Miller last week didn't get his right. So I think you're the first media guy to actually get his question right.
Yeah, you put it in my mouth. So Will Fuller, he was traded. I think the Texans traded up with the Redskins to get him, and then the following pick was Doxson.
Yes. Now I do remember. There you go, because Doxson's a Jet now. So I remember diving into that a couple months ago now when they signed him. Time has been one warped circle in the last couple of months, but we can't thank you enough for taking the time with us. Glad to hear that you're doing well, your family's doing well, and we hope to have some brighter days in the near future where we can worry about betting and rather than a lot of the other troubles in the world right now.
No doubt about it, boys. Well, I appreciate it. PJ, Joe, you guys keep it up, man.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. Take it easy. Stay safe.
See you guys.
That was Tim Murray of the Daily Line, our good friend who we run into at NBC Sports Washington. It's nice seeing these guys again.
I love talking.
Chris Miller, Tim Murray, guys we take for granted that we saw at the halls of NBC Sports Washington that we get to see again. Tim, man, you give him a question and he runs with it. That's what I love about him. He's got so much insight. And I thought the baseball conversation was great. When we were coming up with questions to ask him, I was really interested to see what his thoughts were about futures, what his thoughts were about run totals. And he makes some interesting points. I mean, if you want to take a gamble on maybe a team or two with the future, it doesn't hurt. But at the end of the day, with so much unknown, I kind of would have to agree with them that I'd kind of just wait to see how the season plays itself out and kind of just reevaluate in the postseason and pick a team that you like when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, we've been waiting for an episode to get somebody who's a sort of betting insider on as we got closer to the restart of sports, and thankfully Tim obliged, because it's so interesting now just how differently people could look at certain situations now and how much is up in the air. Like we were talking about with him, on the one hand, okay, maybe you steer clear of futures because everything is such an unknown. Could, knock on wood, God forbid, could LeBron come down with the virus during Game 6 of the conference finals against the Clippers, and now your future bets are out the window because he's gone for 2 weeks. So he's going to miss Game 6, Game 7, and if they still advance, he's gone for the finals. So do you steer clear of futures for that reason? Do you steer clear of MLB futures because while the Yankees and Dodgers are the clear favorites, if they get 3 injuries that are 15-day IL, well, now that's a quarter of their schedule where they're missing their stars. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, like we mentioned the Padres, and he mentioned the Nationals, who we've talked about. I don't like the Nats personally this year. I think it's perfect storm for a letdown, all the circumstances, shortened season. But anyway, Padres, Nats do have value. The Mets have great value. Do you look at one of those teams and say, it's 60 games. Stranger things could happen. Expanded postseason. Why not? There's just so many ways to look at it. And I'd probably be of the school of thought where I'd generally steer clear of futures unless there's a team that you really, really like the value. I agree with Tim that there's nobody in the NBA whose value I really like. I think it's going to be one of those 3 teams that wins the NBA title. The 2 LA teams are the Bucks, maybe the Raptors, but again, not great value. But in baseball, like, I'm not going to go run to a window. I guess you probably don't really want to run to a casino right now, given the circumstances anyway. I guess you're looking to go online. But I wouldn't run to cash any bet on the Yankees or the Dodgers because you're not really getting any juice with them. And it's a 60-game sprint. Like, you just don't know. If Garrett Cole and Aaron Judge, who's already having a stiff neck problem, and Giancarlo Stanton all go down, even if it's only the 15-day IL, you're missing a dozen games now on a 15-day IL. Whereas maybe in a normal year, you miss 6 or 7 with off days and travel days and stuff. So I would steer clear unless there's somebody you really like the value on. Like he mentioned, the Nationals he got at 30-1 or whatever it was. But it's really interesting on how people are going to look at this next 2 months or so, because after 5 months of not really being able to bet on anything except for the last couple of months, European soccer, UFC, and NASCAR, everybody's going to want to go throw money at a window.
Yep.
But it's really not that wise to do. It's you got to be very smart with it.
I agree. I think if you're going to bet a future, I would lean towards betting the under for a team's win total for everything you just said. There's almost too much that has to go right for teams, especially of the Yankees and Dodgers and Astros and those teams of their caliber, for them to hit their win totals. And like you said, if guys get sick and they're missing 10, 12, 15 games, you just don't know how that's going to affect it. The more he talked about it, I really do like the Orioles under. I thought he brought out some great points about how teams look at the Orioles and they're like, we have to beat them in a 60-game season. We just have to. And it's tough to bet the under on an MLB team to lose, 2/3 of their games, but I think it's a pretty good bet. I'm with you. I would steer clear futures, but if you were to bet them, I would lean towards betting the under on teams' futures.
Yeah, and I think the other conversation that I really enjoyed with him was the conversation about MLB run totals. You and I, when we were kind of prepping for this episode, the reason we phrased the question the way we did, we thought he would, and many people would be on unders for run totals, because you think of the postseason when it's where managers micromanage things, and you can see that now because every game is so important. But he's totally right. I didn't even look at it that way. With the DH in both leagues, that changes how you will look at the NL. the weather. I did not.
The
That's
weather.
a great point.
It
I did
is.
not think of that.
I did not either.
All. The
Nope.
reason why pitchers are able to dominate a bit at the beginning of seasons typically is because it's cold in a lot of places. Ball doesn't carry, but it's the end of July. Who knows what the MLB has done to juice the baseballs this year to make it a really exciting 60 games. So really, run totals definitely go, you would think, the over end, especially in that opening weekend with the Nats and the Yankees, where both teams have really high-powered offenses. And granted, it's Scherzer and Cole, but if there's ever a time where Scherzer and Cole might be off their typical dominant self, it's going to be game one after having a shortened summer camp and now in this crazy season. So definitely looking at the overs for run totals rather than the under. That really changed my mind on that. I'm happy that I talked to him before I started doing anything stupid.
I'm watching MLB Network and listening to like Harold Reynolds and Al Leiter and some of these guys. And they're like, I just think there's going to be a lot of low scoring games early on. Guys just get readjusted to simulated game action. He thought pitchers were going to have the upper hand, but I'm with you. The weather totally changed. I mean, that was a great point. I just think of like Coors Field in July and August and how the ball's going to be flying. Cincinnati and their small ballpark with the Heat, Yankee Stadium, all these places. And I thought that was a really good point that he brought up. I still probably will lean unders in a bunch of games, but maybe not as much as I would. Because of the DH as well in both leagues, probably leading to higher scoring games.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's something where I looked at it and said unders, but with what he said, you got to think over. But the main thing I think to draw from the conversation, whether it's NBA, NHL, MLB, if we're talking, getting into certain soccer and whatever the case is, give anything a couple of weeks before you do anything stupid, because there's definitely going to be an adjustment period. There's going to be probably more upsets than usual, more wonky sort of results than usual in the first week or two. Like me personally, I'm not touching anything in the NBA until probably the
playoffs.
The second. No, I'll probably give it to the second week of the rest of the quote unquote regular season, just because then, like he was saying, we'll kind of have more of a focus on, all right, who's going to maybe start resting players? Are the Blazers done where Damian Lillard stops playing? Do the Wizards still pedal to the metal because the Nets are losing? You can start looking at situations and who's going to take it seriously. But yeah, it's take everything with a grain of salt early on, because you don't know what's going to be up and what's going to be down. And you're going to try to find your way through the darkness a lot, because there's not going to be a lot of light shed on what is actually going on in such weird circumstances.
No doubt. And one thing that we don't have to wait to bet, that will be going on tomorrow, something I'm very looking forward to, the Memorial Tournament. One of the best tournaments of the year, but it's just
one of the best non-majors of the year every year.
They're playing at Jack's Place in Dublin, Ohio, right outside of Columbus. And Joe, what's so fascinating about the Memorial this week is the fact that they just played at that golf course last week for the Workday Charity Open at Muirfield Village Golf Club. They adjusted the greens. They made them not as firm and fast. They made the rough a little bit thicker this past week. So the course will be a little bit different. But again, guys are getting used to holes and maybe where they're going to put certain pin locations and all that stuff. If you are betting this week, the Memorial, are you really valuing how Justin Thomas did last week, Morikawa, Victor Hovland? Are you coming right back with those guys, or are you just totally having a clean slate this week and treating the Memorial as if this is the first time guys are playing it?
So I'm looking at it kind of as a hybrid of what you said. The guys who we look at as the better golfers in the world, the more consistent golfers in the world, like the Justin Thomases, I'm putting stock into those guys continuing the success they had from last week. Now, some of the guys who were, you look at the leaderboard and you're like, who the heck is this guy after midday Friday, who maybe they just happen to have a good week. I'm not really putting any stock into them having a carryover, because anybody can have a good week at any time. So as far as the guys who are less consistent, who might have been towards the top of the leaderboard last week, I'm not putting any stock in them as far as, this guy's a great value pick at like 75-1 because he came in like 8th last week at the same course. No, not at all. Because again, There's a level of consistency that the top guys have that those guys don't. So, but I do put a lot of stock into Justin Thomas and Morikawa based on the way they played last week, particularly Justin Thomas. He's been in the thick of a few of the tournaments that have taken place since the PGA Tour returned. Same course, back to the kind of laser focus on it being a bigger tournament and not just some, a run-of-the-mill casual tournament that happens obviously between the big ones. The Memorial is one of the biggest non-majors. Laser focus was just there last week. He's actually my pick to win it this week. I think I've gone with him 3 times now during the podcast.
You just pick chalk every week. It's either Thomas or Koepka.
Well, see, I don't like to pick chalk when there's really no value. Like I'm getting my weeks mixed up. When DeChambeau just recently won.
Right.
Last week? Am I mixed? I moved last week and everything.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Okay. Yeah. Oh yes, Morikawa won last week. When it was 2 weeks ago, when DeChambeau was like plus 350 going into the week and won. Like, I'm not going chalk with that,
sure.
But quote unquote chalk with JT this week, you get him at 15-1 in some places. So that's got pretty good value to me. Definitely staying away from Tiger. I think when I last checked, he was at 25-1, which put him at sixth in terms of the odds.
Yeah.
Rust is going to be a thing. I'm sure he's been playing on his own. He likes jack courses. I'm sure I've seen videos of him playing with his son while he's kind of been away. So I don't think he's going to be too rusty, but there's going to be some level of rust. And I could see that being the sucker bet of the week, seeing Tiger's name at 6 best odds, being like, oh, I could get Tiger at 25-1, but it's going to be throwing money away. I would love to see him come out and win this week as a Tiger fan, but I don't think I see it happening this week. And he's playing with McIlroy and Koepka. So for the first couple of days, you've got some great theater to watch there.
You do. I'm with you. Tiger's won the Memorial 4 times, but this is the first event back that he's played since the restart. I'm truly not expecting much. He might make the cut. He could be in contention
I think
Thursday.
He'll make the cut.
Yeah, he could be in contention Thursday, maybe even Friday. But come the weekend, I just think with the rust, the field is just too strong. I mean, this is like a major championship field that they got this week with guys just wanting to play in the Memorial.
And that's why I go more chalk with JT, because you look every year at the majors, Brooks Koepka's a lock to be top 5. JT is a lock to be top 5, top 10. Dustin Johnson's a lock to be top 10. So when it comes time for the big tournaments, these guys are locked in, and it's as tempting as it might be to not go chalk and get value. I still look at 15-1 as good value, and it's in these situations that cream always rises to the top. So
plus
did well there last week.
The way he lost last week.
Exactly.
I mean, he blew a 3-shot lead with 3 holes to play. And knowing the competitor that Justin Thomas is, that won't sit well with him.
Exactly.
And the fact that he gets to play at that same course. It's not
if it was a different course, different story. But same course.
Exactly. He doesn't have to think a year. A year doesn't have to go by where he's like, oh, man, I'm back here where I blew a 3-shot lead. You're coming right back to the same course. Thomas is going to be really interesting to see how he plays. I'm big on Xander Schauffele this week. He hasn't been in contention since since Colonial, the first tournament back. He shot a quiet 10 under last week, had a top 15 finish, I believe. I think you look at the Memorial, as I said with Tim when we were talking about it a little bit, it's always the guys like DeChambeau and Cantlay, not the Justin Thomases and the Koepkas and the Rorys of the sport. It's like the tier right underneath. And Schauffele fits that mold. I like him a lot. I like Koepka a lot too this week. I think because it's a big tournament, Brooks usually plays his best in those big tournaments with 4 par 5s on the course, chance for eagles. He obviously hits it long. I think he could have a nice bounce back week, but Schauffele is my pick 25-1. I really feel good about Xander this week.
Yeah, I saw him right on the list, right around Tiger. So that's not a bad play at all. And yeah, you've got some guys who have looked particularly better than others since the return to play happened. And there's been a couple of tournaments, like you said, where you look at him and you go, all right, he's playing some good golf right now. So that's not a bad pick at all. And hey, we've mostly been in and around the top 10, top 15, except for that 1 week where both of our guys missed a cut. So
you know what's funny too is last week we actually didn't talk about the Workday Charity Open. but in my DraftKings lineup, I had Morikawa
sure.
on there.
Sure, that's what you tell people.
I won $20, I swear to God. I had a great week. It was awesome. All right, so as we end all our podcasts, where would you go, Joe? And trivia question for each other. Joe, I got to say, I think this is the best where would you go, Joe, especially for the middle of July. I wasn't expecting much, but you got a nice little smorgasbord of like a bunch of different things.
I did cheat, and I looked ahead. There's only one out of the four that immediately I eliminate.
Okay, so we'll see which one you go with. Answer choice A, Roger Federer defeats Marian Cilic for his 8th Wimbledon title. I forgot to write the year down as I'm looking at it here. I believe it was around 2016, 2000.
It was relatively recent.
It was recent.
Yeah, I remember that.
Answer choice B, 2013 MLB All-Star Game at Citi Field. As a Mets fan, I know that one might have been near and dear to your heart. I put that in there. Answer choice C, 1941 on July 16th, Joe DiMaggio goes 3 for 4 and extends his hit streak to 56 games. That still stands to this day. And answer choice D, you get to attend the 2003 ESPYs, get to meet all the celebrities, walk the red carpet. So what are you going with?
So the one that I immediately eliminate, gosh, that wasn't English what I just said, is actually A. As much as we've been talking about how much we enjoy Wimbledon and how historic it would be to probably be there, that's one where I look at it and say, all right, Federer won his 8th. He has how many of them? It's not really special. Almost like a couple weeks ago, was it a couple weeks ago? We talked about a Rafa Nadal French Open one. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, I'm losing. I've totally lost track of the weeks because I went from 3 weeks where I didn't have to know what day it was to now back into a routine at work. So whatever episode it was that we talked about Rafa Nadal winning a French Open title, that's really not special to me. In the same way that Federer winning his 8th is not really special to me. If it was one of the classics against Nadal or Djokovic, different story. But it was against Cilic. It was a lesser marquee matchup, and it was his 8th. So that's the one, as much as we've been saying we like Wimbledon, I cast that one aside. The ESPYs is really interesting because you get to meet a lot of people at the ESPYs. That one was up there. I'm going to say no to that one, though. As enticing as that one was to meet all the celebrities and kind of be as part of that glitz and glam red carpet thing, no for that one. B and C, it's a really tough call because 2013, the buzz and excitement around that All-Star game was incredible because that was when Matt Harvey was at his peak. He came out there and started that game. I remember being at the Fan Fest for that All-Star game. My dad's company helped put it together, so I got to get into there with free tickets, and that was a blast. And I think I got autographs at that Fan Fest from Cliff Floyd, Cal Ripken Jr.
Wow.
Who else was it? Juan Marichal.
He was at the one in D.C.
Was he? And I can't remember the other two now. I think it was maybe Garvey and there was one more, but that was a blast. And the game itself, again, with Harvey on the mound, that's enticing. But I have to go with C. 56th game of the streak. That's the one I go with. 56th game of the streak. If you were asking me this question on July 15th, 1941, I probably wouldn't have said it because at that point DiMaggio had the record and it's just kind of like see how long it goes. But knowing what we know now in the year 2020, that no one's even come close to this, and it was the last game of the streak, I would want to say that I was there the day that he extended it to 56 before the streak ended, a record that stands to this day. And as you go around sports and look at records that will probably never be broken, I think this is up there as one that will probably never be broken. So I think it would be really cool to be there that day.
I thought that was going to be the last one you were going to choose.
Really?
Yeah, I got to go with Fed. I understand your reasoning, but the 8th was the record breaker.
It was.
Just to be there for that must have been pretty cool. The ESPYs was a close second because, I mean, anybody who's in anybody is showing up to that thing. So that was tough. That was tough to pass up on. Did you ever play Beat the Streak?
I did. Yeah. The highest I ever got, I think, was 22.
I think I was right around there too. Yeah. Just how hard that game is to pick a guy every day to get a hit shows how hard.
You can pretty much guarantee it's not happening this year. Because if it happens this year, someone's almost having a hit streak for the entire season.
That's very true. That's very true. Watch it happen this year. That would be very fitting. All right, trivia. You got yours last week. You're
Got
up
my lead back.
2-1. Do you want to go? Do you want me to give you the question first because you're leading?
I would actually like to give you the question. First,
Okay? Go ahead.
because I am leading, and I want to see if I could expand my lead to 2, or if it's still gonna if I got to defend against a tie. You're an O's fan, so this one's gonna be up your alley. In the decade from 2010 to 2019, they had 8 unique pitchers start opening day. Wait, let me just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, they had 8 unique ones because one player repeated 3 times.
Yep.
I want you to give me 5 of the 8 unique opening day starters for the Orioles from 2010 to 2019. You ready?
Yep.
Go for it.
All right. Chris Tillman.
That's the one that happened 3 times. That was
Dylan
the easy
Bundy.
one. That's 2.
Kevin Millwood.
Yes, that is 3. You got 2 to go.
Let's see. So 2010s.
2 to go. You still got a minute 15.
Wayne Chen might have started opening day. Miguel Gonzalez was up there. I'll go Wayne Chen.
That is incorrect. Strike 1.
All right.
Who are the 3 you said again already?
Millwood, Tillman, and
You say Guthrie?
Bundy.
Bundy.
Oh, Gaussman? Kevin Gaussman?
Gaussman is one of them.
All right. And let's see.
Thank God you didn't hear what I just said because I thought you said someone else. And I actually literally just said it.
No, I didn't hear it. Oh, my God.
We said the 2 guys that we said at the same time. You've got 30 seconds left. You got to give me one more.
All right, let's see. I mean, it's got to be from those. Jason Hamill?
Jason Hamill is one of them. You got it. With 20 seconds to spare, and we're back to being tied. As you said Bundy as the one that you said that I forgot who you said, I said Guthrie. So we said it at the same time, so I thought I gave it away. But from 2010 on, it was Kevin Millwood, Jeremy Guthrie, Jake Arrieta, Jason Hamill, triple Chris Tillman, Gaussman, Bundy, and then last year, Andrew Kashner.
Very nice. Okay. Sweet. Good. Tied up at 2-2. For you, since we got the Memorial this week, we haven't had a golf question. I'm going to give you golf trivia. Not too hard, though. I mean, I know that, kind of my hockey is your golf.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that because up until like 3 or 4 years ago, I was only like majors. And until the last 3, until I was in college, really, I didn't start watching kind of everything else. So relatively new. If you're asking me who won the Memorial in like 2007, I've got no clue.
Well, your question is fairly simple. Just tell me the 4 golfers who won the majors last season.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Last season. This is harder than it gets made out to be.
I know it is.
All right. Brooks Koepka.
That's one.
Tiger Woods won them.
There's 2.
Obviously.
Those are the easy 2.
Okay.
Masters and PGA Championship.
So we're going to England. And wait, where was the other one last year?
The well, I'm not going to tell you that. That might help you give it away.
All right. How much
You're
time?
at 35 seconds. 55.
I'm not going to get this. This is a harder question than you make it out to be because you remember the Koepka performance. You remember. Oh wait, hold on. I can picture him. The U.S. Open last year. Koepka was in contention. He lost it though.
Yep. 55 seconds.
Oh, I'm blanking on his name. He looks like Koepka.
30 left.
Oh, it's gonna kill me. When you say his name, I'm not gonna be that disappointed in myself because I'm not gonna get the 4th one. But when you say his name, I'm gonna be disappointed because I know who it is. I can picture him, and I remember watching that tournament.
15 left.
That's it. I'm done. I'll tap out.
All right. Well, I'll give you the one you said you wouldn't have gotten. The Open Championship was Shane Lowry.
Okay, I had no chance at that one.
Okay, at Royal Portrush. And then U.S. Open was Gary Woodland.
Gary Woodland. Oh, my God. I couldn't think of his name. I was watching that one because I think I hit Koepka on the live line on Friday when it was still valuable. Mm-hmm. And I was watching till the end because he made that really late push. And I remember my dad came in the living room and he was watching Woodland, and he thought that was Koepka, and then that's when I realized that they actually look kind of alike. So
Yeah.
I couldn't think of his name though, but that's a good question. I like that. All right, so we're back to tied up. We're back to
tie up at 2.
2 for 8. Both of us, not
2
great,
for 8.
but you know what? We're giving each other good hard questions. We're not making this easy.
Not making it easy. So next week we'll try and make it 3 for 9. Hopefully, we got some great guests coming up here to end the month of July. We got sports slowly working their way back. Hopefully, Memorial.
Hopefully this is like the last episode where we really have to like kind of grasp for topics and like spend longer than we needed to on Mahomes, spend longer than we needed to on betting,
just
spend longer than we needed to on golf.
Sports.
Exactly.
Yep.
We could finally talk live stuff from the 4 major sports starting after the next episode, because the next episode comes out on the 23rd when baseball starts. So after that, we will have live sports.
We'll have our baseball
So
preview
excited.
next week, breaking it all down. What'd you think of the new setup? You like your new
I do. I mean, it's.
I know. I like the board in the back with.
I do. I have. This has potential to do stuff every week, kind of like a Woody Page sort of thing.
I like it.
But I like it. I'm kind of getting back to being here.
Bringing me back to my college days, like what I would write on my board for assignments I had to do.
There you go.
So very nice. Well, thanks again to Tim Murray for joining us, giving his expertise, hopefully helping us all win a little money. Enjoy the Memorial this week. Everybody stay safe, and we'll see you back here next week for episode 9.